grace of God, Ephesians chapter 2, extremely familiar passage. Chapter 2, verses 1 through 10. And this is an extremely familiar concept. It's kind of like Christmas. It's the greatest day in the world, and sometimes we don't get all that excited about what it's really all about because it's, oh yeah, we know that. And some of us hear this and we go, oh yeah, we know that already. Why don't you skip to something else we don't know? We already know about the grace of God. I'm just curious, how many of you know this thing that we have in the United States called a speed limit? Yeah, not very well. Are you familiar with the speed limit? Yeah? Yeah? What is the speed limit in Glenlock when you're driving on your way here? 30. So how many of you should be going to hell today? Okay? Wow, only like 8 of you. So, you are, okay. Because sin is disobedience. It's breaking the law of God, and God says that we are supposed to obey the laws of the land, and the law of the land says you do not drive over 30 miles an hour. If you're in Glenlock, how many of you were going at least 31 on your way? Do me a favor, stand up. If you think you were driving at least 31 miles an hour, or if you were in the car of the person, because guilty by association, stand up. Really? You were under 30? Yeah. Ignorance is bliss, isn't it? Ignorance is bliss. Sin. Now, we would call that what? A little bitty sin? Not deserving of hell, right? But sin is what? One sin is what? So, how many good things do you have to do, go ahead and have a seat, to counteract the one sin? You can't. How do you measure that? And so, one time driving to worship and sinning while you do it. And we go, well, but yeah, we have grace. Well, we're going to talk about that too. Grace is a beautiful thing. Grace is something we need to understand. We all, I believe, know the speed limit, but how many people don't abide by it? We, as Christians, should all know the truths about grace, but how many of us really live by it and understand it? And that's something that we have to think about too. Do you realize that there are only, and I've shared this before, 2 religions in the world? Okay? There are only 2 religions in the world. Now, are some of you going, well, I have people in my cul-de-sac like of 8 different ones. There are only 2 religions in the world. Do you know what those 2 are? Okay? It's close, but some are trying to be with God. But trying to be is a very key word there. One, you have to earn your way. It's by works. And the other is by grace. There are 2 religions in the world. And so, the one hand, every other religion that exists, has an element of works righteousness. You have to earn your way to heaven. Whether it's Baha'i, Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism, every single one, earn your way to heaven. Earn your way to God. How much is enough? And that's the question that you have to always try to think about answering. How can you answer? How much is enough? How many good deeds is enough to counteract all the times I've sped, all the times I've lusted, all the times I've lied, all the times I've been greedy, all the times I've been selfish, all the times I've sinned? How many good deeds is enough to counteract that so that on the teeter-totter of sin and good, I'm leaning over here toward good? How do you count it? Can't count it. There's no way to measure it. Because There's no way to earn our way to be in God's presence and to earn our way into a relationship with Him. This is why this is so crucial, so important. Now, I'm not here trying to bash the other religion, because there's only two. What do I want to see? Everyone that's over here in this religion, that's every other religion in the world. It's even all the self-help stuff of today. It's mysticism. There's all an element of trying to earn your way. It's all about how good you are and how much you've done, and whether on the teeter-totter you had just enough to tip the scale in the right direction. It's my desire that everyone that's in this religion would know about the grace of God, so that they can be a part of this religion, a relationship with Jesus by His grace. Grace is so crucial. Grace is so important. We all know the speed limit. We don't always abide by it. We all know about grace. We might even struggle with it, I think, as Christians. I was reading something this week. We were off on vacation this week, and I read 6 whole pages of a book. It was amazing. Yeah, I'm a big reader. 6 whole pages. But in those 6 pages, there were actually some gems. It was not like just a fun, casual book. It was a spiritual book, a spiritual disciplines book, and I was reading. It's one I've never read. And I was reading about this, and there were so many nuggets that I honestly was like, wow, this is too much for me to chew on. But there was one thing that came out of it, and it said this, and it struck me because I've been there so many times. It talked about this joyful relationship that God wants to have with us. And that's so true. God wants to have this joyful relationship with us. But so often we treat it kind of like we're doing when we're driving, and then we see a policeman, Mr. Acapelli. We see a policeman in our rearview mirror, and what do we all of a sudden do? We slow down. I mean, we're already going 30, and now we're slowing down to like 18. In the 30 mile an hour, like, okay, because what if I'm too close to the speed limit? What if my speedometer is off? And I'm really going 33 and he pulls me over. And so we like slow it way down. I was behind someone the other day that did this. And I think the policeman was really just having fun with this guy. Because it was on the highway. It was on 249, like heading toward Tomball. And so there's 3 big lanes at least. And this car was in the middle lane, and the policeman was in the left lane, and I was behind the car in the middle lane. And I saw the policeman in my rearview mirror and side mirror, and so I knew he was there, and so I instantly did what? Looked at the speedometer, made sure I'm okay, I'm good. No worries. Got a little relief. Shoulders were tense, now they loosen up a little bit, and I think I'm okay. I slowed it down maybe a mile or 2. I'm not a big speeder, but I slowed it down a mile or 2. Just to make sure if my speedometer was off, I was doing okay. But then I had to slow down about 8 miles an hour so I didn't slam into the car in front of me that in a place that was 65 miles an hour had slowed down to about 50. And what did the policeman do in the far left lane? Slowed down to 50. Right next to him. And so what's the guy in front of me do? Slows down a little bit more. And so what do? Pass him on the right. Go by him, get back in the middle lane, and go on my merry way at 65 miles an hour ahead of the policeman and the car that's now going like 30. There's just something about that. I think a lot of us almost treat God like that. Like, oh no, I did something wrong. Oh no, I wonder if he saw that. Oh no, now I need to do something good to counteract that. I got to slow it down. Make sure, I'm in the 10 Commandments now. Hi, God. Yeah, see, I'm right here. I've even slowed it down. Give me 20 commandments. I'm going to follow all of them, okay? I mean, we kind of do that, and then we lose consciousness of that after a while, and then we just kind of blaze on our way. But I think we treat God sometimes like he's out to punish us, like he's out to get us. And so this book talked about this joyful relationship that God desires to have with us. And it's all through grace. We couldn't earn it. We didn't do anything to deserve it. He just offers it to us. And how beautiful that is. But it said that so often, even we as Christians, he wants to have this joyful relationship with us. And so he wants us to be in his word because he speaks to us. So we can open this up, and we can open up the Gospels, and we can hear the words of Jesus. Like right here where he said, be opened to the man. He spit and he touched his tongue, and he put it on the man, and the man started speaking. And he wants us to understand that he's a God that heals, and he's a God that loves, and he's a God that gives generously, or you can open anywhere. Oh, Zephaniah and Habakkuk. I love Habakkuk. Though the fig tree, look, there's no marker here, it just opened here. By the way, I do not encourage Bible study this way. Okay? God, what do you want me to do today? Because you might get something you really didn't want to have to do today. If you open it up and like it talks about no one has, anyway, I'm not even going to quote that verse. But I don't play Bible 8-ball very often, but I just happened to turn here, and God spoke through Habakkuk, though the fig tree should not blossom, and there's no fruit on the vine. I love this passage. And the produce of the olives fail, and the fields yield no food. In other words, in an agricultural culture, there's nothing. That's all they have, and there's nothing. Though the flocks are cut off from the fold, and there's no herd, there's no cattle in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. We can go anywhere, and God can speak to us. He desires to speak, but sometimes we treat it like, all right, I need to do my devotional time because I know it pleases God. The game's on. I'm going to miss the last few minutes, but I need to have this before I go to bed. All right, God, I must really love you. I hope you see this. I really love you. I turned the game off. I'm reading your word here because I love you that much. I'm making this huge sacrifice here so that I can spend time in your word. Do you think that's the spirit that God gave his word to us in? No. Is that what he desires for us? No. He desires that we would just want to be in his presence, experience that joy-filled relationship that comes from his grace through faith. Now, sometimes even in that kind of devotional time, and this is why it spoke to me so much, I can become a legalist. I have to go back to grace every day. I can become a legalist for myself, and I can become a legalist when I look at others. Anybody ever been there? And it struck me because I can even do that with my devotional time sometimes. And I don't just always do it out of a desire to spend time in his word and to walk away from it just being filled with joy. Normally, hopefully, yes, but not always. And I've gone through seasons and I've gone through valleys where I do it, and I still kind of think sometimes, even when you don't want to do it, it's important to do it as a discipline. But God's desire is that we would be children of grace. And that isn't really operating under grace. Operating under grace is, wow, God, you are amazing. I look at my life and I see this sin, this struggle, this period of my life, and wow, how I had walked away and how messed up I was. This period of life, and oh, I don't even want to remember that one. And then this period of life where, God, you got a hold of me. But then this period of life where I kind of fell off the deep end again. And then this period of life. And we look at these periods of life and we go up and down and up and down. And God says, I've loved you through all of it. And so his desire is that we would say, well, God, I love how you have been there through all of it. And you've offered me grace. You've offered me forgiveness. You've offered me life. You've offered me salvation. You're joyful. You want to spend time with me. And I think this is so beautiful, and we'll get to this in the very end of Ephesians, where it says that God prepared these works or good works in advance for us to do. When were those prepared? They were prepared before you were born. When were they prepared? They were prepared before Jesus died on the cross for you. When were those good works prepared? They were prepared before the creation of the world, before the fall, and before the creation of the world. Because God knew, I'm going to create people, and I'm going to create them in my image, and here's the way I want them to live. Here's the relationship we're going to have. We're going to walk in the garden together. This week, Sarah and I and our family got to hold hands and walk through kind of gardens. We saw flowers and we saw bushes, we saw sand and we saw beauty, and we just got to walk through it together. And there was something so wonderful about holding Sarah's hand, not having a care in the world, and just walking with her. And that's what Adam and Eve did with God in the garden before sin entered the world. Have you ever really thought about that? How beautiful that is. God didn't come calling, and Adam's sitting there, I don't know, maybe he's watching the animals, because they don't have football back then. So maybe he's watching the animals. And maybe it was before he named them, and so he's like, that is a really interesting thing. That's thing one, and that's thing two, and that's thing three. And so Dr. Seuss wasn't original. It was Adam, I believe. Before all the giraffe. Really? Giraffe. And all these things. So Adam's there, and it wasn't like this. Adam, God is speaking. He goes, Adam, come on. And Adam goes, oh, man, there's God again. I didn't know it was that time of day already. Guess I got to stop watching the animals and seeing what thing one was doing. And I need to go for a walk with him in the garden. Come on, Eve. It's time for a walk. It wasn't like that. God called to them, and they would just enjoy walking through the garden together in that tight relationship before sin entered the world. That's kind of the way I felt when, without a care in the world, I could just walk with Sarah by beautiful plants and bushes and trees and flowers and a beach and an ocean and just enjoy. And that's what it was. There was joy. It wasn't a hardship. It wasn't forced. It was just natural. It was beautiful. God is walking with the garden every day, and then God comes that one day and he calls to Adam and Eve, where are you? And where are they? They're hiding. They're hiding in shame because sin had entered the world through their actions. And now they had knowledge of right and wrong. They knew what they had done. And they wanted to hide from God instead of walking with him in the garden. But even though they had sinned, what did God come to call them to do? To go for a walk in the garden together. Have you ever thought about that? Even though they had sinned, he called them to come and let's go for a walk. But now it changed. I think for many of us, even as Christians, when we try to spend time in devotional time, it becomes more like Adam and Eve right after sin entered the world, and we'd kind of rather hide than just enjoy being in the presence of God and walking hand in hand with him through the garden and listening to his words speak to us and thinking about what a great and awesome God he is. Grace. Grace is a beautiful thing. And it's a beautiful thing that sometimes even we struggle with living in. And so in the book of Ephesians, just point out a couple things here. Because this whole passage and everything I've said already is speaking to this passage about grace. But I want to make note of a couple words and a couple concepts. I want to do this very quickly. But let's remember a few things. This whole thing is about being saved by grace. What's our identity? I am saved by grace. Therefore, Lyra, I am a amen, right? Because I have been saved by the grace of God. It wasn't about me. It isn't about how many good things I've done. I didn't earn sainthood. God bestowed it upon me because I was connected with him. I was holding hands with him in the garden because I believed in him and his sacrifice, his love, and I'd been touched by his grace. And he says, I'm a saint. And so it's a beautiful thing, but a lot of people saved by grace, when they hear that, go, I don't need to be saved. I'm good. A lot of people in the world, I don't need to be saved. I'm good. And so what we hear here is what we're saved from, why we were saved in the first place, and then for what we were saved. Okay? What were we saved from? Ephesians 2, verses 1 through 3. And you were dead in the trespasses and sins in which you once walked. How many of you have ever said, oh, I am beat. I am just dead. Anybody ever use that expression? Were you dead? No. This word is dead. This word is not, I'm so tired because I just ran a mile. I'm dead. I shopped all day. I'm dead. Really? Okay. Well, actually, that might kill me. But that's different. Dead means it's nekros, dead. In other words, what can you do when you're dead? Nothing. Can you breathe? Can you get up and walk? Nope. Can you help anybody out? Can you do anything to get your life back? Dead. Dead. God says, you were dead. What do we need to be saved from? Deadness. Deadness. Yeah, I don't know if that's grammatically correct, but it's right. You need to be saved from deadness, from being dead. And some people are the walking dead. Okay? That's what we live in. Yeah, it was a popular TV show a little while back. Some people still love it. Well, that's the world we live in. We live with people that are walking dead. You were dead spiritually in the trespasses and sins in which you once walked. Following the course of this world, it's the way of the world. Deadness. Deadness is the way of the world. Following the prince of the power of the air. That's not God. Satan's behind it. The spirit that's now work in the sons of disobedience, among whom we all once lived in the passions of our flesh, carrying out the desires of the body and the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, like the rest of mankind. We don't like to talk about the wrath of God, but the wrath of God is real. And before we were connected to Christ, we were under the wrath of God. God still loved us, but we were under his wrath because sin had disconnected us from him, and there was nothing we could do, being dead, to earn our way back to him. What do we need to be saved from? Anybody? Deadness. Being dead. That's what we need to be saved from. Why are we saved in the first place? Well, that's the next verses. But, always have to read it like that, remember? Okay? Dylan, you'd be good at this. Okay, give me these next two words. Come on.
But God!
Hey, that's right. Okay? All right. But think about the words. You were dead, sons of disobedience, the power of the spirit of darkness in this world, sins and dead. But God, totally different. Notice, by the way, all those past tense. You were dead. You once walked, among whom we all once lived, and we were by nature children of wrath, but now we are, Lyra? Saints. Why? Because but God stepped in the midst of our deadness. That's right. But God, what's his nature? Being rich in mercy. Why did he do this? Because he's rich in mercy. Because of the great love with which he loved us. Even when we were dead in our trespasses, made us alive together with Christ. Who made us alive? God made us alive together with Christ by the power of Christ, through Christ. God did it. We didn't do it, right? Because we were what? Dead. Can't do much. We were dead. But God reached in our deadness and made us alive together with Christ. By grace, you have been saved. He throws that in because how could we say that we had anything to do with it if we were dead? But we were dead. And now we are alive. Because of who? God in Christ. But God, being rich in mercy, because of the great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead in our trespasses. Why did all of this happen? Well, we were saved from was our deadness. Why we were saved is because of the great mercy of God and his great love for us. The great mercy of God and his great love for us. That's what it's all about. That's what I want people to know. I want people to know the great mercy of God and his great love for them. So often we as Christians see someone who's walking apart from God and we hone in on one of their actions, and what do we want to do? We want to convict them of their actions rather than share with them the love and the grace of God, right? But they need the love and the grace of God first. And then God will do the work in transforming their hearts and their lives. His word will have an effect, bringing them in course. I love something Randy shared with me today. And this wasn't like sin, but it kind of describes it. And Randy, I asked you if I could share that in the message. Still okay? Randy said that there's a person that lives really close to him. And he knows their favorite style of music. Because when they're about 6 miles away, you hear it. And you hear that. You know, the bass is pumping, and you said kind of a little car? Little Beetle. The whole back's probably speakers, and it probably like hops because of it doesn't even have to have shocks. It just hops because of the bass. And yeah, it's good. So Randy maybe was not that thrilled with it. Because maybe Randy was trying to take a nap, or maybe Randy was trying to go to sleep. And Randy hears the music like it's being performed by a live band inside his own house. And And he said, my first thought was to say something. And then he said, but I didn't. But instead of saying something like, hey, could you turn that down? You had a conversation with this person. And you found out a little bit about, it was a girl, right? Found out a little bit about her and even got to just kind of talk to her a little bit. Found out, he said, man, so, you like your music. And he said, well, I'm a musician too. And because he was getting the drums out and she noticed that. And they had a conversation about music. And he even said, yeah, I play at my church, so we're not moving. I'm just carting my drums back and forth, because we set up every Sunday in a school. And man, if you love music like this, you should come and just check it out. And he said, but my first instinct was to want to correct her or to ask her to change it instead of just showing her grace and love. But I didn't. And you said, and it was beautiful, right? And you walked away like, that was awesome. How would it have turned if he had gone, excuse me, could you turn that down? That's really annoying me. Would he have had a great opportunity to be able? No. Gone. It would have been dead. Dead. And only Jesus maybe would have been able to resurrect it. And so grace, I hope that we can offer people that same grace. So what were we saved from? Anybody? Deadness. Why were we saved? Because of his great love for us. Because of his mercy and his great love for us. Okay? We got that? Why? Because of his great love and his mercy for us. Okay? And then what were we saved for? Well, God prepared good works in advance, beforehand, for us to do. So grace isn't just, I can speed all I want because I'm going to be forgiven anyway. And I can do whatever I want because I'm going to be forgiven anyway. It was, I have been changed by this incredible act of God because of his love and mercy. I now want to live my life for him. And I want to share that grace with others and walk in the good works that God prepared in advance for me to walk in. And when did he prepare them? Before sin entered the world, when Adam and Eve were walking with God in the garden and everything was perfect and there was no sin, that joyful relationship, that abundant relationship that they had, that's what he wants us to walk in. And what are the good works? It can be being a mom, can be washing clothes, mowing a lawn, making dinner. Have we ever considered those the good works that God prepared in advance for us to do? But they are. Because it isn't about being the special person, right? The special person who has the designation of pastor. And by the way, I'm not calling myself that. That's sometimes the attitude that we have. We have the special people in church, and then we have all the other people. No, we're all in the same boat. We all once walked disobediently. We have all been saved by the grace of God, and now God has good works prepared in advance for us to walk in and to do. And that's what this passage is all about. I hope we can live that, and I hope we can share that. This week, here's our simple task. And think about Randy's example. Find a situation where you would be quick to correct, but instead, you build that relationship and you show love and mercy and see where it goes. It could be with your children. It can be with our children. I didn't hear that. It's just where I'm going. We're tracking. Because isn't that a place where sometimes we need more grace? Sarah and I talk about this a lot. We ask a lot of our kids. That's what last week was. It was a celebration of our kids. I want to lift this up because we've asked them to do a ton. I mean, they're here every Sunday morning at 8:30 and they're unloading this trailer every Sunday morning. And they're at the nursing home every time we go. And they're at every event we do. And we have people at our house 2 to 3 times a week. And they are interacting and entertaining and helping. We've asked a lot. And last week it was just grace saying, kids, we love you. You kids are awesome. And we want to bless you with this trip because we think you're wonderful. And we love you guys. And so let's offer our children a lot of grace. We still need instruction. We still need to teach. We still need boundaries. But let's offer our children grace. Let's offer our spouses grace. I think we need it there a lot too. Sarah has to operate with a lot of grace being married to me. And she does beautifully. Because I need a lot of grace. Because I'm a bit of a mess. Let's offer that to our spouses. Let's offer that to friends. Let's offer that to bosses, co-workers, neighbors. Let's offer that to someone who has hurt us deeply, wounded us. Grace. So there's our assignment for the week. Freely we've received, right? So now freely give it to somebody else because God gave it to you.